Welcome to Arts Learning Lab. My name is Laura Rogar, and I'm the Arts Learning Services Director for the Idaho Commission on the Arts, or Arts Idaho for short. I'm a white woman in my late 30s, and I have brown hair in a ponytail and light tan skin. And the shirt I'm wearing today is white like second day snow. This webinar is presented by the Idaho Commission on the Arts, which is a state of Idaho agency under the Office of the Governor. Our mission is to enable access to the arts, to arts education, and to the cultural and artistic heritage of all Idahoans. This webinar is a session of Arts Learning Lab, a series that features expert presenters discussing topics relevant to Idaho's creative community. Our topic today is When Learners Lead, and I'm really thrilled to see so many dedicated educators on the webinar with us. And we have two goals for this meeting. The first is simply to introduce you to 3 Idaho arts educators who are facilitating student-centered arts learning already. And secondly, we'd like you to leave with at least one fresh tactic to try in your own teaching practice. But to center our conversation today, here's a definition about what it is we're doing when we teach arts. It comes from Eric Booth, who is a great advocate for arts education and for teaching artists. He says that, quote, "The number one job of a teaching artist is to activate the artistry of others," end quote. I really like this definition. It reminds me that as arts educators, our role is to facilitate intentional spaces where other people's capacity to make art can be turned on or turned up. And that's true across every artistic discipline. So whether we gather with learners with the goal of telling stories, dancing, making music, making objects, or making change, our root mission is the same. So if you agree with me that this definition is a good one, that it's true that our main work is to activate the artistry of other people, then the big question becomes, how do we do it? One answer is to design learning that prioritizes student voice and choice. Today, we're calling this learner-led arts education, but that's not meant to be a prescription for how to teach. Rather, it's an invitation to just think about teaching tactics that allow learners to find their own path through the creative process. We're so lucky to be joined today by 3 Idaho organizations who will share their approach to arts learning. As you hear from these educators, be listening for sparks of inspiration you might bring to your own work. Presenting today is Christina Wilkens of Future Public School, Jen Stockwell-Fortner of Boise Contemporary Theater, Teal, Gardner, Sophia, Bronner, and Teddy Snow of One Stone's Lab 51. The plan is for each organization to present for around 15 minutes and then to end with a Q&A, time permitting. Feel free to pop your questions into the chat as we go, and I'll bring them to presenters. So we'll hear first from Future Public School, a tuition-free K-6 charter school in Garden City, Idaho. Christina Wilkens is a visual arts educator with 17 years of teaching experience within K-12 Title I schools. In 2022, she launched an innovative K-12 art program at Future Public School, which teaches children to think like artists by placing artistic decisions in their hands. Welcome, Christina. Christina, I'm not hearing your audio come through.
Let's try this.
Sounds good now.
Okay, so sorry. As Laura said, my name is Christina Wilkens, and I am a white woman in my late 30s. I have short brown hair that is partially up with a bold earring, a colorful bandana scarf. I am a artist. I'm working primarily within two-dimensional artwork. I'm a printmaker and drawer. I am a mother, and I am an educator. Now, as Laura shared, I have 17 years of experience working exclusively in Title I schools, and I am here to share about my launching this art program here at Future, but I would be remiss to not start where I've spent most of my time. I spent 15 years teaching secondary art, primarily at Nampa High School, and my learning journey started mostly how I was taught. I taught my artists, my students, how to become stronger visual artists. And the emphasis was on that, on developing those skills to be able to communicate visually. And as I had multiple years under my belt, and especially in our current academic environment, I noticed so many artists that were so resistant to even trying to create art, to trying to learn a new skill, because at the heart of it, they were scared. They were scared to try something new because of lots of different factors. So within our art program, my amazing department at Nampa High School, we started to ask this question: what is the true value of art education? And I would love for you to respond to this in the chat, because each of our answers to this is really personal, and I feel is a very valued place to start when we think about how we teach art. So how I was teaching art was centered on my students becoming stronger visual artists. And what I noticed, especially with my demographic of student, is in reality, even though I wanted them to be, many, or shall I say the majority of my students were not going to become quote unquote professional artists. They were not going to study art in school. And it led us to ask this question: what is the true value? And this is really the launching point of what I want to share with you today. Now, I began to place more decisions in students' hands, but I felt like I could use my energy elsewhere. And I felt that starting teaching at the beginning of students' education career as opposed to the end was this really rich place to start. And my story is so intertwined with the school that I currently teach at Future Public School, that I would love to start here. So Future, as Laura shared, is a tuition-free charter school here in Garden City is where we are located. And it is a unique space because our ambition is to be a proof point for what is possible within education, specifically when you are in a real school, a diverse school, one that has challenges that might not mirror some other spaces that I've specifically taught in. Our demographic comparisons with the state of Idaho is kind of this proof point of our diversity. So within English language learners, we have 17%, special education population is 16%, free and reduced lunch, we have a 51% rate. We have 10% of our population is on a 504 plan. And then our racial diversity is that we have 37% students of color as mirrored to those 63% of white. Now, in the right column, it just kind of shares a snapshot of our difference compared to the state of Idaho, and how we are truly trying to disrupt systems that might not support all learners. Now, I have the honor of being in a space that nurtures innovation, and I also have the honor of building a program from scratch. So here at Future, this is our second year of launching an innovative art program that I'm going to share with. We have a population of roughly 400 students, and I see most of my students twice a week for the whole year. So I have this really beautiful ability to connect with my artists multiple times during the week, which isn't always true in elementary classrooms. Now, our program is funded on this idea, the idea that art is a universal language that every child should have access to explore. Unfortunately, within our society, those that have access to arts are often those that have access to other resources, that have the ability to have rich arts experiences because their families are able to afford those. So the fact that I am able to connect with a demographic that might not have this is the hope that this also is a proof point for what's possible within art education. Now, our studio is a process-focused full choice art studio, and I'll get into that in a second. But the whole idea or the foundation of it is that our studio is meant to create a studio experience that mimics how artists work in the real world, that works through that process of how artists get from point A to point B. And obviously, we know that is a very messy process. Now, this idea of choice, this idea of focusing on process is really, it's really key to understand that any education on any level, but specifically within the arts, choice is a spectrum. So on the left-hand side, you'll see some examples of limited choice, working through moderate choice up to abundant choice. So one that I would like to highlight for limited choice is DBAE, or discipline-based art education. This is where, as the educator, you are offering limited elements of choice within the assignment. And it is really based on building skill. So this is how I learned art. This is how I taught art for so long, because honestly, I didn't know that there was anything else. Now, when I started to ask that question, what is the true value of the arts? I started to think about choice. As an artist myself, I struggled with this when I left school because I was the one that was in charge of choice. Nobody was telling me what to do. So I had to learn how to make my own choices and find my own assignments, essentially. Now, mirrored that on the opposite end is TAB. So TAB is the method or pedagogical approach for how we run our art program here at Future. So within TAB, it's sure that it's a 3-sentence curriculum. TAB philosophy is that every child is an artist, that the classroom is their studio, and that we ask the question, what do artists do? Now, when you open up that idea of choice, it is actually highly structured. So when you allow students to make their own artistic decisions, what you're doing is really thinking about how artists think, how artists create. Now, the studio habits of mind may be familiar or may be new to you, but they are 8 ways that artists think and act as they create. These habits were researched by a project through Harvard Graduate School of Education called Project Zero, where they are bringing research-based observations and research-based understandings to education to increase efficacy, to make sure that the limited time we have with students is important. And just scrolling through this list, it's clear, like, these are the ways that artists move through ideas. Now, additionally, just like in a discipline-based classroom, we dig into the elements and principles. We talk about how art is made beyond just making it, right? We are thinking about how artists use those elements to communicate. And then, of course, we still have our national core art standards that we explore. This image here is a photograph of myself and a student that was part of the Wasmuth Art and Writing program, which, for those of you that are interested, is open on their website. It's a great way to have an authentic product or an authentic project that has a real world deadline. And it's this amazing program that artists can earn money towards a college scholarship. Now, beyond those key, parts and pieces of how TAB works, the true beauty of TAB is that by placing those creative decisions in students' hands, you are developing the skills that translate beyond the arts. You are growing critical thinkers, you are growing problem solvers, you are growing artists that are able to lead and communicate. And the beauty of TAB is that each artist is able to share their own story, and that increases motivation. Now, as artists, we and as educators, we know this, right? We know that giving students choice is the preferred way of teaching, especially within the arts. But here's the deal. How do we evaluate student work, especially young students' work or beginning students' work within the arts? Now, when I was moving to elementary level, this was really hard for me, knowing I wanted choice, but knowing this image is really what is expected of elementary art programs. That oftentimes these, oh my gosh, this is like, these are so beautiful. You can tell that the students took time, that there's craftsmanship, and this is not an implication that this is a wrong way of doing it, but this was the only model that I saw being done. And essentially what is happening is that we as adults are placing an adult aesthetic on kid art, on student art. We are placing what we deem as beautiful as adults on work that are emerging artists that should instead reflect their ability. Now, let me try to get out of this. Yeah. Now, authentic art really honors student voice. And when I say authentic art, that means developmentally appropriate art at each grade level. There are many different levels of growing ability within the arts, but when you see authentic art, like this, this is an art show that we had last year, it honors individual student voice and it genuinely reflects what it means to be an artist at that moment. It's truly beautiful to see and hear stories. Now, I'll touch on it, but notice each of these artworks also has a reflection, which is what is going to really bring in the value or the meaning of the artwork. Okay, now this word or this theme, choice without chaos, is really the foundation of how a top classroom is run. I also wanted to note that this is actually the title of the very first tab book that I read when I was curious about starting a tab classroom at an elementary level. So if you are first starting out, I highly recommend this. But this idea of choice without chaos is because there are strategic systems in place that allow learners to function independently. So here are a couple images from our art studio. Each material is organized by center. So in the very center image, you will see that this is actually our kindergarten and first grade center. So they have more limited choice. And you'll see that every single container has a label, has a specific place on the shelf. It has a resource that has a visual of where it goes. And this allows students on the left image to independently get those materials as they need and return them as they need. Now, the image on the left is a photograph of our collage center where a student is getting out papers to use for collage, which is, it's a way to organize a really messy material or messy center. Now, when a center opens, it is open until a class demonstrates that maybe they're not ready for additional choice. And the key thing is that centers are gradually unlocked. So on the left, I have what I call honor trackers. Honor is one of our values here at Future, where the definition is that I value myself, others, and our community. So when students have met our honor commitments for that studio session, they get a dot. And when they've earned their honor rainbow, then that means they are ready for more choice in the studio. On the left, you can see we have open centers, closed centers. It appears that nobody is open or no centers are open, but those have in fact been pulled down below. And our number dots are actually how students select where they are to ensure that there's not 30 people that are all trying to do a rather messy material like oil pastels or chalk pastels or drawing or collage. Now, artists are also responsible for maintaining a clean and organized studio. These are some visuals that I have on lanyards that I assign or students assign themselves to do for that studio session. So we have artists that are table washers, artists that collect portfolios that store our work, artists that make sure the collage center is all organized, and artists that put our numbers back. So this increases ownership, but it also makes it so there's no way that I would be able to do all of those tasks. So it's, it benefits, there's lots of benefits from it. Now that we talked about the structure, I really want to dig into what I do to facilitate learning beyond just providing those structural and systemic supports. So the idea is that when students come to class, when artists enter the studio, there is some sort of learning that is happening. There's something that I need to communicate with them, and it's usually where I introduce a new skill or introduce a new idea. This is also where we dig into those studio habits of mind to really set our mindsets for what we are trying to focus on. Now you'll see here that this is a demonstration I did on how to draw. We're starting a scientific illustration where we're stretching and exploring, and we're also learning to observe. Then here's the key thing, is that artists have the choice to explore that idea, or maybe they came to the studio with another idea that they're curious about. It's not an option not to do anything, but it is an option of whether they want to, what they want to engage in. This year, I've also refined how I set artists up to lead, and this is through a gradual release of control. I learned specifically within our demographic of students that there are some students that need really strategic system. When we think about that choice, that a curriculum should respond to each individual student's needs, and that I'm able to do that within that TAB classroom because I am able to kind of push and pull for each individual student. So this gradual release of control is where we practice cleaning procedures, we practice showing honor in the studio with our studio commitments. And that's where we really start to develop the skills that you need in order to have those mindsets and that development. So this is an image where we're learning how to collage. I had some pre-cut features that they could cut out and then make whatever they wanted from that within the face. So they had creative restraints, but they also had that freedom to express. Now, when the pieces are fully functioning, this is a first grade classroom that has two open centers between drawing and collage. So there's some artists that are just collaging, there's some artists that are just drawing, and then there's this beautiful mix of both. These artists are making a care art piece or their highest craftsmanship piece for an art show that will be happening at the end of January. You'll see that there is 100% participation. There are helpers, there are movers, there is independence, and it's like, this is the beauty of TAB. Now,
Christina,
as I said,
I have to just interject to say we have about 1 more minute and you are sharing the best content, so we are riveted. But just about 1 more minute to leave space for other presenters.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously I could talk about this for days, but really, I want you to understand that sometimes that differentiation and less choice really ensures those high success. So we've had to kind of shift and pull with different grade levels that are demonstrating they need more choice. So some of those projects still have a lot of choice within them, and here's an example. Okay, so to culminate, what is that true value of choice within education? And it's really allowing artists to shine. Here's an example of an artist that loved origami that is taking it into a larger scale, accompanied by an artist statement that says culminating work. And this is a beautiful example of a student. Oh gosh, I would love for you to just hear. So this artist is explaining how this is a dead Sharpie, like beyond dead, and he is moving and experimenting and digging into this process that I feel this artwork is probably the culmination of the beauty of choice in the studio. Now, it has been an honor to share this. If you have any questions, I have learned from other educators around the world, really. So if you would like to connect, I have an Instagram, Innovative Art Ed, my own personal art Instagram, as well as our Future Public School for more learning, or please reach out to me via email, Christina@futurepublicschool.org. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Christina. I loved seeing your classroom, and your documentation of learners working is just incredible. That's really, really cool stuff. Next, we will hear from Boise Contemporary Theater, also known as BCT. Presenting today is Education Director Jennifer Stockwell-Fortner, an actor and educator whose career includes working on both stage and in film, locally, nationally, and internationally. At BCT, she directs and guides students to create an original play, the whole deal, in approximately 60 class hours, and then they perform it on the BCT main stage. So please welcome Jennifer.
Hello, everyone. It's so nice to be here. Thank you, Idaho Commission of the Arts. I'm really grateful to be here. So I'm Jen Stockwell-Fortner, and I'm the Director of Education. I am a professional actor, a director. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Performance from Boise State. I've worked as a professional artist in the Valley for over 25 years and 12 at Boise Contemporary Theater. I'm a white woman with long brown hair and blue eyes. We are one of two professional theater companies in the state of Idaho. We're a nonprofit, and our mission is to inspire our community to examine our perspective and better understand ourselves, each other, and the world around us by creating thought-provoking stories of the human experience. And our education program is all about our mission statement. We reach approximately 2,000 students every year. We started with Theater Lab in 2011, and that's our flagship program. And now we've grown almost to 20 classes since I became director in 2018. Our flagship program, Theater Lab, where students collaborate, they devise, they write, they rehearse, and then they perform their original brand new world premiere one act play in front of an audience on our main stage with all of the professional elements of production, with lights and sound, props, costumes, the set, everything. And each group is led by a professional theater artist. We audition these students to be part of our program, ages 12 to 18, and they audition with a 1-minute monologue, a writing sample, a headshot, and a resume. This immediately sets them up for the program that we only want dedicated individuals and that we treat them like professionals. As a professional actor, you have to have a headshot, a resume, and have at least one monologue prepared. And the expectation is that this is their play and it heightens their commitment level. It's communicated at the audition, so no one is surprised. And it's different than any other theater with an already written script and they're just cast and their part is given. The ownership is all them. We meet for 2 times a week, about 2.5 hours per class, and then 10 weeks total. At the final week, we have our tech week is what we call it, where we meet every single day, and then we have 3 performances, usually the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, where anyone in the community is welcome to come. And this last fall, we were pretty much sold out, which was fantastic for our shows. Each of our class starts with City training. City is a company, a theater company out of Saratoga, New York, and we use their techniques to create an ensemble of actors that have never worked together in a particular group in a quick and efficient way. And they use viewpoints and Suzuki. Viewpoints is moving in time and space and how to react to the world around you. Suzuki trains for stage presence, voice, and overcoming adversity. These all build trust. It also puts students in the same level because no one is good at Suzuki and everyone is great at viewpoints. After the actor ensemble training, we start with the idea lists. We have our contracts, which is up here. These are all of our students' idea. Everything on the list is their ideas. We have contracts. We have a list of wants, what they want in their play. They have a list of don't wants. We call them a list of ingredients, an image list, character list, setting ideas, and no idea is turned away. All of the ideas are great ideas. And there's so much more invested when it's their idea. Once they have their list, students give pitches from those lists of a more well-formed, fully realized ideas and the idea list that they've started. The instructors are there to be a sounding board, a mentor, and a mediator if needed, and then an editor, and finally a director and designer for the production. We also ask the students all of the questions because we believe that questions are really the point of theater. What do the characters want? What happens next? Why are we telling these stories? What do we want to leave the audience with, and letting them know that there are no wrong answers. That way they can gain confidence and they just can't fail. We also use Google Docs as our tool for writing. We try by just writing it out and then sharing by reading the script. And then we go back to the drawing board, if you will, and for multiple drafts, and we try it again. And then by giving the students honest feedback and treating them like peers, it gives them a sense of ownership and responsibility that they don't always get. The idea to give yes to everything and that there's no bad ideas helps with their confidence and motivation. We have a few expressions, and one is to hold on tightly and let go lightly. And lobster jello, that sometimes ideas are great, but they don't always go together. Lobster and jello are both great ingredients, but might not taste great in the same pot. And that also hold on to an idea and fight for it. Be a champion of that idea, but also sometimes it's not going to work, and know when to just put it away. I like to say, put it in your back pocket and save it for another time. So hold on tightly and then let go lightly. Also have the idea of generosity to let go of an idea. Let somebody else step forward if their idea is working better, and then really champion that idea. We also ask them what is working, what isn't working, and what do you do well, what needs improvement. So we leave the answers to them, we leave the questions to them as well. Taking feedback is probably one of the best tools that an actor can learn. Teaching them to say thank you, take the note, and then do the note is one of the most important things. For instance, if a director says, "Jen, I can't hear you. When you say this line," I say, "Okay, thanks." And then the next time I say the line louder. The note doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong or I didn't like it. It just means I'm making you and this piece better by changing this. When we transition to actor director in the process, which means the students change from devisers to actor and the instructors turn to director, the students know that their time for input is done and the show must go on, and the director is there to make them look the best. So that's when they become the listeners and the doers, wherever the piece might be. Sometimes we are really close at the end and the draft is just not making it, and there's still a lot to be done. We as directors say, "Okay, everyone, this is the time to make some tough decisions." And they're great about listening about when it's time to change it to an actor. And then to leave it in the director's hands and to not give notes to the other actors is something for them to learn as well. Having a student being seen and giving them the opportunity to have a voice and explore the ideas is really the only thing that we're doing in Theater Lab. It's not some magical equation. It's just an opportunity for them to be heard and for their idea to be used. Instead of telling them what to do, you ask, what do you believe they should do? And it's a new way of thinking for a lot of these students, and they get so excited to be able to share their idea and then present it in front of an audience and then hear the audience feedback from their idea, and it's always fantastic. We also tell them it's okay to fail, that not all Picasso's paintings were masterpieces. Celebrate your accomplishments. If it didn't work, how can you change or grow from it? What did you learn? The process is just as important as the final piece. And bring to your art whatever your best is for that day. That's what we're doing. It's called Theater Lab for a reason. And try it, be brave. And sometimes that in itself is something that they've never been able to do before, is having the opportunity to try something. So thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Jen. Lobster Jello will just stay with me all my life. I think that's such a great idea to keep in mind when you're making anything new. Our final group of presenters comes to us from One Stone's Lab 51. One Stone's Lab 51 is an innovative, student-driven high school located in Boise. Today, we'll hear from multidisciplinary artist and non-traditional arts educator, Teal Gardner, whose experience as an educator ranges from working with very young children in a nature-centered Montessori classroom to founding an adventure playground, very cool, to 7 years of high school art education at One Stone. And presenting with Teal today, we're so lucky, are Sophia Bronner and Teddy Snow. Welcome.
Thanks, Laura. We're so pleased to be here and feeling really lucky to join such cool people doing such amazing things in our community. So hopefully to build on that and give our angle and what we're up to over here at One Stone, we are presenting on how One Stone uses student-driven learning and empowering coaching to put students at the center of their education. As mentioned, I'm Teal Gardner. Presenting us alongside me is Teddy, and then we have Sophia, who's at home right now. I'm a coach at Lab 51, a high school program that prioritizes student voice. This leads to a very personalized experience that reflects the growth of learners. We're a school that don't use tests or grades. Rather, success is measured through how students grow and the reflections on their growth that they share. I've been coaching at One Stone art for almost 7 years now, and I love to focus on how art can be used to explore almost anything. I love co-coaching with other staff who are experts in other areas. I like just creating dynamic experiences for individualized learning and putting students in the position to get the most from leading their own learning. My greatest strength from the blob is synthesis, because I love taking disparate ideas and research and building something cohesive from them. We're going to be using a little bit of One Stone lingo here, so the blob is going to come up and we'll explain it after everyone else is introduced. So go ahead, Teddy.
Hi, I'm Teddy. I am a self-taught digital artist who is in my last year at One Stone. I am just an artist that ranges from photography to canvas and paints to performing arts and just traditional pencil art. I mainly do digital art and I use a program called Procreate. And my greatest strength in the blob is ideation, because I just love coming up with multiple ideas.
Thank you. And we'll toss it over to you, Sophia.
All right. My name is Sophia Bronner. I am also a self-taught artist. I strive to live and work in Tokyo. I worked with many different mediums, such as digital, charcoal, pencil, and colored pencils, as well as a little bit of pastels. I also use Procreate and Procreate Dreams for animation too. Someday I hope that I can become an animator in Tokyo, and my greatest strength in the blob is curiosity, since I'm always curious on explaining or exploring different ways to make my art better and also different mediums.
Thank you. Okay, so we do have some verbiage that we're going to define really quickly. Blob stands for bold learning objectives, a map of how we organize the growth indicators that students set goals in and are assessed on in their growth transcript. The growth transcript is a personalized output of student growth that is something that we're constantly working on. So the word Lab 51, it really means it's a lab school. We're trying out new ideas, we're using new techniques, we're building new tools, and we're trying them in real time. So the growth transcript is something that has been developed for student assessments since I have been at One Stone. A coach is me. I'm an adult person who is a staff member and adjacent to teacher at another school. Experience is a class or learning opportunity organized for a group of students, and student-driven learning experience is a totally student-driven project created out of their interests and supported by a coach. I'm going to stop for a second and remember to explain what I look like. I'm a white woman in my late 30s, and I have a bob haircut and blue eyes, and I'm wearing a turtleneck right now. Okay, so here's the disruption blob. I just put this up. It's a map of various words that students get to know pretty well. Thinking about where they would like to grow, how a learning opportunity could assist them in that growth, and then being able to describe their learning. These are terms that go pretty deep. So oftentimes in the art experiences that I'm coaching, students will be setting goals within creativity. So they might write a goal about curiosity, like Sophia probably has done that, being a curious person and wanting to grow in there. Synthesis, ideation, iteration, risk-taking, collaboration, those are all the ones that are kind of defined under this umbrella of creativity, but certainly art covers all of the blob, and I truly mean that. I think that art is one of the most amazing things because it can find itself in all of these different areas. So maybe just for 1 second, take a minute to look at the blob and think, where would I like to grow today? Cool. And we're going to be moving on. So Teddy is going to take us into some info on student-driven learning.
Yeah, so what is student-driven learning environment? Look at One Stone. So at One Stone, students work alongside coaches to grow their strengths and are free to explore their interests with passion. Students set up their own personal goals for themselves to show in ways that they want to grow with specific skills or their passions. Students share these ideas for learning experiences with coaches so that they can design experiences off of them and offer them to everyone at One Stone. Coaches help support students by just being there and offering some sort of support and structure where students can talk about their passions, goals, or anything that they want to at One Stone. And students have a base structure with other students as well by sharing ideas and collaborating together to come up with full ideas and a lot of teamwork.
Cool, thank you. All right. Oh, hello. All right, I'm going to do a little kind of case study description right here. So I, this fall, coached an experience called Nobody Naturals, which I think to me does a good job of sharing how cross-disciplinary learning and really student-driven experiences can create these super fun and deeply rich opportunities. So I worked with students for 11 weeks or all of the fall semester. We created Nobori, which are banners based on banners that are used in Japan to communicate. They function as signage and have their roots in samurai culture, but likely far preceded. We use these banners as vectors for learning about Japanese culture and aesthetics, as well as physical construction of the bases and sewing the flags themselves, and also using natural dyes to create the pieces that were then quilted together. Each student was brought through the process of understanding the basics of Nobori and then used their own design interests and artistic license to create personalized flags. As their coach, I just want to say I was really inspired by how students were engaging with the art of Japan. Lots of manga fans out there, lots of anime, lots of people talking about the culture and the cultural products of Japan. And I was hoping that we could kind of follow that thread that was provided by students into something that would allow me to share some of the expertise that I have, for example, with natural dyes and sewing. And then also we would explore together this landscape that none of us really understood. What is a Nobori and how can we use that for the exploration of some kind of the cultural knowledge that we wanted to gain about Japan. Students did engage eventually with also a research project that was considered social science. So I facilitated that, and they were able to give presentations, and some wrote essays at the end to get into that space of learning, grow some information literacy, and so forth. So I'm just checking to see if there's anything further that I want to say about that. Okay. I'm going to go back to the blob really quick and say that during the Nobori Naturals experience, students identified that they had grown in research, writing, empathy, grit, desire to grow, curiosity, synthesis, ideation, iteration, risk-taking, collaboration, passion. So just saying again how incredibly plural arts education is, it's covering this map of all of these various tools that students are choosing to grow in. And that was just super inspiring to me. Okay, and there are some more images of our lovely Nobori. And the one on the far left was done by Sophia. Okay, so now we're going to hear a little bit about, here, can I go to that?
Yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
Now we're going to hear a little bit about Teddy's own work. So take it away, Teddy.
Yeah, so before I came to One Stone, I wasn't very confident at all in my ability to share my art. I self-criticized myself often, and I was self-conscious and hidden and falling into a deep hole of art block. I often ran out of ideas and just gave up on ideas because I just didn't like how my art was progressing. When I came to One Stone, I was, for the first time ever, able to share my art with the majority of people. Yeah. Being in a safe environment made me open up to feedback and praise, and I was also able to like explore other mediums of art that I wasn't very comfortable with. I did charcoal paints, watercolors, crochet, and clay, and I discovered that digital art was my medium that I enjoyed doing. And I was able to not compare myself to other artists and just learn from them instead, and just grow on my own self ability for art. And I always found ways to improve, and being at One Stone really helped me find that passion and that path for me to just be the best I can when it comes to my own personal growth in art.
Can I ask you a question really quick?
Yeah.
You're in your final year at One Stone. What's next?
Hopefully, since this is my last year at One Stone, I'm just gonna keep pushing it forward and sharing it more, my art, with more people outside of Boise and the school, and just like with everyone as much as I can.
Cool. Thank you so much. It's great to see your work. Sophia, are you ready to give us some insight into your highlights that you wanted to share?
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, so this specific year during this time, I had so many wonderful experiences. Although one of my most memorable was the portfolio development fair. Teal set us up with this portfolio fair that I wasn't very interested in, nor did I really want to share my artwork because I'm very secretive when it comes to art. But it was definitely a great opportunity to see so many professionals and artists getting to look at our work and give us critiques of what colleges specifically want from us. My favorite part was definitely getting the artist opinions and reflections, such as when they were talking about I have a good variety, which I was like, okay, that's pretty nice to know, especially since they were talking about how colleges really like variety in their work or in your work. And that was amazing to hear. So, and then they also said I do need to work on finishing my pieces, which I take that to heart every single day when I'm drawing. I always think about that, I reflect on it, and I use that advice. Just getting critiques from other artists made my experience with college portfolio development so much easier in what they want and what they and like understand what they are looking for. One Stone also made me express my creativity more with real world experiences, giving me confidence that I didn't know and have so I don't have to carry on my family line and become a teacher. Instead, I can develop my skills and become an artist or animator in Tokyo, Japan. There are options for artists all over the world, and I'm so grateful for not only One Stone to have all these experiences, but I'm just really, really thankful for Teal for setting up all these experiences, and so I can express myself through art.
Thanks, Sophia.
Mhm.
Okay. It's really great to see these again. I saw them at the portfolio fair, but I didn't see the little strawberry holding person down there, which gives me great joy. Okay, so we're nearing end of time here, but I just wanted to share one last thing, which was an experience that I did a few years ago called Artists on the Edge. And this is one where it was again kind of an outgrowth from some brainstorms that we'd done with students about what are some interesting opportunities that we should pursue with with an art experience, with a class. How could we actually get after something you're interested in? And students very frequently mention psychology. So I started thinking, what are some ways that I can support the investigation of psychology through art? Well, there was a large amount of artists that you may know about who are people who have had different mental health states throughout their lives, and those mental health states have influenced how they make their artwork. There are artists who have different senses or states of neurodivergence that have impacted how they can make their art, and people with sensory differences, and that impacts how they make their art. So we framed this up around looking at artists who had various differences, and then really exploring getting inside their making processes and using prompts that allowed us to understand who we were as artists ourselves in more depth. So I didn't really create a lot of assignments. Rather, there were artifacts of learning that came from our group collaborative research and conversation and studio times. So there's another piece that was made based on James Castle, who we researched and visited his house. And that brings me to our final slide. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone's time. I wish I could meet all of you educators who are out there. I'm sure we have lots to learn from you. I didn't fill out my Instagram, but you can follow One Stone on Instagram. It's just One Stone, Idaho. Check us out on our website and stay in touch. If you would like to email me, I'm very happy to touch base and share any of the information again.